The Nintendo 3DS is a handheld console that's been picking up a lot of popularity in the past couple years. I've had one for about 2 months now, and in this video, I'll be talking about my experiences with it, discussing my experiences with modding it, and giving an overall discussion on whether I think you should buy one or not. As for what made me get a 3DS, I mostly wanted one for Pokemon and stuff, to be honest with you. As I mentioned in a couple uploads ago, I've had my Switch 2 for a couple months, and I wanted a way to experience Pokemon, at least the classic games. And I had used my iPad and stuff through Delta, if you know what that is, to play those games. But there was really a harder way to get 3DS games. Like they're just inconsistent, didn't work. Even on my computer, I was having a bit of a hard time. So I was like, meh, maybe I should get the 3DS. And I wanted to wait just to make sure I really, really wanted it. I didn't just want to dump money on it and then just never use it. So I was like, meh, I'll wait and see if I really want it. And I ended up getting it in August. I found it on. I have the new 3DS XL specifically. I found it on eBay for about, I think, $280, which was a pretty decent deal. I was pretty happy with it. I felt like I've got my money's worth out of it personally. There's a lot of stuff you can do on this thing. I'm always impressed by how much work and stuff has been put into the people modding this thing and keeping this console alive. It's really, really cool. And I'm sure there's people who use this thing like religiously and could tell you so much more than I can. I use this thing more on the side while my Switch 2 is still kind of like my main console that I like to use, but don't get me wrong, I love my 3DS. And I suppose that brings me into my next big point, which is the modding scene, and it's a really big modding scene. As I said, it's super duper cool, the work people have put in. The awesome part about it is that the 3DS is extremely, extremely easy to mod. There's a whole website that you could go straight to where it tells you everything you need to do. It doesn't tell you everything. Like, for example, I got a 128 gigabyte storage card for my 3DS, and I ran into an issue where it just wasn't taking the format, so I had to learn how to format it. And all the tutorials were were for Windows, and I have a Mac, so I'm like, uh-oh. But it took maybe like 5 minutes on like Reddit to find a solution. But as long as you could read a tutorial, even me who needs like videos for whenever I'm doing something, I had no issue following along with the tutorial. It's extremely, extremely straightforward. So if you have any interest in modding, the good news is that it's very, very easy to mod it. The bad news is that it becomes a bit more tricky to do just general like management and upkeeping. If there's any problems, I've run into a small handful, not too many. But you might run into issues like I have, nothing too big. That can become a bit more annoying because, again, there's not really like a specific help guide. The issues tend to be more so with like any games that won't run or like any errors that show up or any just bugs or problems. I haven't had many, as I said, but that's like the main drawback is that you'll have to troubleshoot those if they ever show up. It's rare that you get one. I haven't got one in a very long time, but it always can happen. And I guess next I will cut and I will show you a tour of what my 3DS looks like with all the work that I put into it. So I'm figuring the best place to start with this would just be by showing what's actually on my own 3DS. I've decorated it a little bit. As you can see, I have all the stickers and my wallpaper. It looks so good. I'm such a fan. It's so pretty. But so I'll start here. This is my management folder. I have everything neatly organized, and I guess I'll mostly just highlight what you get when you actually mod a 3DS. This is FBI. I'm not really too familiar with all these apps, to be completely honest with you. I've used this a couple times since it has a QR code feature to scan like any kind of CIA software in. It's pretty cool for that, pretty clutch. I've used it a couple times, as I said. Not something I use all the time, but just something that you get when you mod your 3DS. It's just really convenient to have. This is my system settings. This is obviously comes with when you get a 3DS. This is just for general, like adjusting your settings on your 3DS. Not much to really say about this. This is the universal updater. I haven't really touched this, honestly. I don't think. I might have, like when I was setting it up or just to adjust something, but nothing's coming to mind where I've actively used this. For what it's worth, it might depend what you're doing with your 3DS, that it may or may not be super relevant, but I personally haven't used it, so I think it's going to depend. This is FTPD. This is a file manager remotely, so you could connect it to your computer. This is extremely, extremely clutch, especially if you happen to have a I have the new 3DS XL, and since the SD card is in it's kind of sealed up with screwdrivers, it makes it a bit complicated to get in and out. This is super, super clutch for if you just need a way to quickly access your files, something that you probably will be doing a lot if you have a modded 3DS. So this just makes it extremely easy for you to access all your files remotely. Works really, really well. There's been a couple of downloads where I've had to actually take out the SD card and load them onto the console themselves instead of just using FTPD. I believe it was for specifically Pokemon Black and White, and then Pokemon Black 2 and White 2. So if you're having issues with those, you've been using FTPD. Hopefully, that was my issue. Hopefully this might be a solution for you. This is Anemone. This is a theme manager for the 3DS. It's what I use to get my background and all my badges and stuff. Even the music I have, let's see. I believe this is Undella Town from Black and White. So, it's just very tranquil. I was a fan of this. It just sounded so good. This is Checkpoint. This is a save manager for the 3DS. I personally haven't had much of a need for it, but I know some people will find this extremely useful. This is the Homebrew launcher. I've used this a couple of times to download homebrew apps and stuff. Pretty cool for that. It's kind of like just somewhere to go for like homebrew kind of software and stuff. This is the H-Shop. This is a pretty cool store because they're running a permanent sale and everything's 100% off. Yeah, cool stuff. This is the Twilight menu. This I use for DS software to run that. I think it runs. I've seen Game Boy Advance stuff on here as well, and probably some other stuff, but I mostly use it for the DS stuff. And then lastly, for this is Arctic Base. This is this lets you access your 3DS and run it on a computer. I've used it. I believe it runs through Citra. So if you've used Citra before, you could run your games through Arctic Base using that, which is pretty neat. Next up, this is my Pokemon folder. I have all the games, just in order of generation. I haven't installed all of them, just the ones that I wanted. I have the main one I would like to highlight here is PKSM. You have to download this one separately. It doesn't come pre-installed with the 3DS, but this is kind of Checkpoint, but like specifically for Pokemon. This is a complete file editor. It makes this little ecosystem where you could transfer your Pokemon in between games using PKSM, which is insanely cool. I think that's really, really neat. Lets you edit them, generate, access past events, do all that stuff. It's really, really, really neat for that. Really cool app. I use this a lot, especially with my own save files and stuff to kind of edit them as needed. And then also I use Pokemon Bank a lot. This is a really cool software. It's kind of, it's just like Home, but for the 3DS. I use this whenever I need to transfer stuff up to Home. So, I've seen some people who are a bit concerned about doing that they'll get banned or that something will happen. I'm just going to say that it doesn't. I've done it a lot of times with stuff that certainly shouldn't exist within the realms of what you could actually get in Pokemon, and I've had no issues, and I've had stuff sitting in my files for like weeks and nothing's happened. So I can vouch you'll be fine. Just maybe don't trade them. Maybe don't like do anything too suspicious. Just make sure everything's legitimate, or at least passes legitimate, and you should be fine. And then I just have my other stuff. I have my other folders, but that's pretty much everything that I use my 3DS for, especially with like all the modded software. What else though? I guess I could go over the accessories I can for this thing as well too. So first up this is my stylus. This is an extendable stylus I found on Amazon. It was pretty cheap. It works really nice. I prefer the little like inch or two this gives you when you're using a stylus. It just makes it, especially because what do I have on here? I have rather than having for the DS, and this extra inch of the stylus just makes that a lot nicer to play that way. But this works great. I had one issue where like it was just very loose because it fits in the actual 3DS, but it was a little loose. I just found that putting tape on it, it's such like a little janky solution, but it worked like a charm. I just put a bit of tape to just thicken this up and reinforce it, and it sticks in my 3DS just fine. I'll show you right here. Let me just plop it in. There we go. There's the stylus. And then if I shake it, like, it's not going anywhere. It works like a charm. But this is my stylus that I use. I'll put a link in it in the description if you're interested, if you want to pick one up. But this thing is great. And then I also have this little converter. This converts USB-C, and then it takes it into the charging format that the 3DS takes. So let me see, because I have a USB-C charger right here. And let me just pull it out. I'll kind of move this, but here's the USB-C charger I have. Let me just make sure, put this in like that. And then lastly, this just kind of plugs in, and let me flip this over that way. I can see what I'm doing. There we go. And here we go. It's charging, as you can see, the light turned on, but so it works. This was This was pretty cheap as well. I found on Amazon. I'll leave a link if you're interested as well, but not sponsored for the record. Just some neat little stuff that I figured someone may appreciate if they, are looking for something a bit more versatile than the 3DS plug they give you, just because it works with anything at that point. But yeah, that's pretty much my 3DS and what I use it for. I love this thing, as I said, and I'll get back to the rest of the video now. And then lastly, I guess I'll just discuss whether or not I think it's worth it. And to that answer, I'm going to give this one a big fat just like, it depends. There's so many models of the 3DS for the record, so there's definitely a lot that you could pick and choose from. So like, for example, I got the 3DS, the new 3DS XL, and I think that's the best one if you just want the most premium 3DS. Like, you just want all the features, you want all that stuff, and you're willing to pay up for one. That's going to be your winning pick. I think a runner-up would probably be the new 2DS XL. You get the same stuff the 3DS does, just without the 3D functionalities. I don't think you lose anything else. I'll put a note if I'm incorrect on that. I'm going to do some research into that, but that would be a pretty good option if you just want like all the new 3DS stuff, but you don't need the 3D toggle, since that's mostly what you're getting with the 3DS XL, obviously. And then there's also the Nintendo 2DS. That's probably going to be your best bet if you are on a budget and you just want a 3DS, but you don't want to spend a lot of money on one. I just go for the 2DS. You get access to pretty much a majority of the software that the 3DS can run. I think the only thing is you'll probably be missing out on a lot of the new 3DS games, which I don't think there are really that many. But if you need the new 3DS games, just go for a 3DS, or the new 3DS, obviously. And then as for who I think I'd recommend it to and not recommend it to, the people who I recommend it to are people who want one for nostalgia, or who want the hardware without any interest in modding it. Like, maybe you just want a 3DS and you want the cartridges and you just want the experience of having, physical games like that. Then I could recommend you very much. You would probably get a big kick out of it. I would recommend it for Pokemon players, since you get access to PKSM, and if you play on a Switch, you get the a very seamless way to transfer everything straight from bank to home. Even using PKSM, it's a really, really, really awesome tool for anyone who plays Pokemon and is dedicated to it. You're probably going to get a lot of value out of it. I've gotten my money's worth out of it, and I definitely don't regret getting my 3DS because of how cool stuff like PKSM is with Pokemon Bank and all that stuff. I've really, really enjoyed that. And then, as I said, if you just want something simple, if you decide you don't want to mod it and you just want something easy to use, it's still fantastic for that. You're going to have a good time with it. And then lastly, for the people who I wouldn't recommend it to, I think the biggest group would probably be people who want 3DS games but don't care about the online features. Like, for example, maybe you just want to play Pokemon, you could care less about like PKSM or any of like the home stuff with like Bank. If that sounds like you, then you could probably sail the season, find something. If you know. Wink, wink. I think the other big group would be people who just don't like to tinker, who don't like troubleshooting, who just don't want the upkeep. This is mostly for people who mod. I'm just thinking, I had some relatives who were curious about Delta and how to use it, and I remember showing it to them, and they were kind of confused by the process and just didn't understand it, and just found it a little confusing overall. If that sounds like you, then maybe the 3DS might not be your thing. I don't blame you. Sometimes people just don't enjoy like tinkering with technology. That's completely understandable. But if that sounds like you, and the idea of like modding it or having to troubleshooting or having to reformat SD cards just make you like throw up in your mouth, then I don't think I'd recommend you get the modded 3DS, because you may not have as much fun with it. You could always get it and just play non-modded, and I'm sure you'll have a great time. But if you don't like tinkering, maybe don't get the 3DS. But I think that's pretty much everything, honestly. As I said, I'm not a pro on the 3DS in the same way that I have been with my other stuff, but I have been having a lot of fun with it. It's a pretty awesome little handheld console. I completely understand the hype for this thing and why it still has the ginormous following that it does. And I hope this video hopefully was informative, fun, helpful, all the stuff. If you enjoyed, let me know in the comments. Start a discussion as per usual. And I guess that's it. And I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.